5:30. Good evening, everyone. Now I have 5:30 by Apple time. Hopefully that's recognized as accurate. We are now ready to call the meeting to order, and we're going to have a little bit unusual sequence of events this evening in that we are going to begin with our 2026 annual meeting, which we will hopefully cover fairly quickly because our next actual board meeting is scheduled to begin in a full 9 minutes from now. So we will move quickly with the annual meeting agenda. Call to order, roll call by Ms. Alma.
Ms. Kane is excused. Mr. Leonard? Here. Commissioner May? Dr. Northup?
Here.
Ms. White? Here. Mr. Williams?
Here.
Judge Williams?
Here.
Ms. Woods?
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is our pledge. And Mr. Williams, would you please lead us in that?
Please join me in the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next item is approval of the agenda, and again, this is for the annual meeting agenda. Have a motion to. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Public comment, I've had no request forwarded, no awareness of that. The next item of business is election of officers for 2026, including president, vice president, and treasurer. I will make a quick comment to the my colleagues on the board, simply offering myself as willing to continue on as chair, but by no means advocating strongly for that. If the board chooses and desires additional change in leadership or alternative individual, that would be fine with me as well. So that is my only comment. So in regards to that, do we have any other nominations in regards to president or board chair?
I make a motion for Dr. Northup to remain as chair.
Thank you. And Stephanie, you seconded that? Any other nominations or individuals, or do we require to have more than a Siegel? Okay. And we want to vote on these individually. So, okay, so it was initiated by Tori and seconded by Ms. White, and I have agreed for that. So we will call the question for vote for the board chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Do I abstain from that? Okay. Well, thank you all, and I will pledge to do my best in fulfilling that. Next is the vice president, and that is currently been Ms. Woods as or Stephanie as our.
I make a motion for Stephanie to remain as vice chair.
You willing to do that? Yes. Okay, Stephanie has indicated she is willing. The motion has been initiated by Ms. Woods. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, seconded. Any further discussion or nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Ms. White retaining the position as vice chair? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstain. And sustain, okay, abstain. Next is the treasurer's position, and is that position yours, Ms. Wood?
I would agree to stay if anybody else would love to have that position.
Okay, but willing to stay?
Willing to stay.
Okay, so.
For Tori, Ms. Woods to be the treasurer.
Okay, motion has been made by Ms. White, and second? Seconded. Any further discussion and or nomination or volunteerism? Any of the above? If not, call the question. All in favor of Ms. Woods remaining as the treasurer? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, any opposed or abstentions? Okay, very good. All right, the next question on the agenda here is location of the 2026 regular board meetings by Ms. Cannon, and part of that is being prodded, I guess I will say, not necessarily necessitated, but at least the question has been raised in light of all the construction taking place on Palafox Street in the downtown area. So, Ms. Cannon.
Yes, we just wanted to offer for the meetings going forward, at least during the construction time, to have the meetings at our office. And then we can regroup, of course, when all of that's done. We have security, so we would have the same level of support that we do here. We can record the meetings. It may not be live streamed, but we would certainly record them and post them to our website. So I think we would have all the same supports that we do here, but we wanted to, we didn't know what the construction was going to look like, and of course, if we have the public that's wanting to come, we know that's easy to get to our place, park, and get there as well. So want to put that out there for discussion. If you guys want to remain here, we can, but we felt like that might be a good move during this construction time, just not knowing.
Thank you.
I don't know that we have the capability to do that. We can look into it, but we don't right now. We have the ability to record all of it. We have the owl that moves around so you can see everyone talking and all of that. And then we can just, it takes, I don't know, 10 minutes to download it, and then you can post it to the website.
Mr. Mayor, y'all plan on moving? Are y'all doing anything different with the commission? Yeah.
Nobody parks on Palafox, right? It's really not even different for us. There's no parking on Palafox. All the parking is on Bailey or Jefferson. It's really not adversely affecting us. Doesn't matter to me, but I'd love to make sure that it's live. Or would it be better if it was to the school district, if they could live stream, they had no capability.
We do have the capability to, it's almost live. You know, there is a slight delay. Yeah. Within room 160 at the J.E. Hall Center, I would have to check the dates. There are times when our school board meeting does conflict with the trust meeting. I just don't know. Are you still thinking about doing basically every other meeting? The one meeting at PSC and then the following meeting here? Is that what the staff is considering?
No, we were just saying we could host all of the meetings at our office while, you know, there's construction and all of
Okay.
that. But I think Commissioner May is saying, he was asking about the live stream. We don't currently have that technology at the trust. We have the ability to record and then post. But I mean, the school district's also an option too. We just didn't know what the parking situation, like the commissioners have their own spots, but the rest of us are, you know, fighting for
No,
spots.
everybody has their own spots at the county. This ain't the city. No, this ain't. I mean, we have a judge that walks across the street. I'm here. Keith is downtown. Dave is downtown. I don't know what Stephanie's office is, but to me, the majority of the people are much closer in proximity to downtown. The school district are here than we will be at Pensacola State.
I guess what I would add, let's take a look at seeing if we could use, don't you use MyScambia right now? Mm-hmm. And I think MyScambia has a YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And if you simply video via the YouTube, it would end up being live. Now, I am by no means a technology person.
No.
But I think that's what our group does if we end up with a meeting that we need to house at another location. So why don't we just vote tonight to keep the meetings as we currently have them scheduled this year for the next set, and we can look to see if there is a way to live stream from another location if that's what we need to do. And I'm looking at you, Michael, because I think you probably will be able to figure that out.
I could second that.
Okay, all right, that's my take on it, and that's my 2 cents worth.
I mean, I'm sure I can't speak for the honorable judge, but, I mean, it would be, I know he has a challenging schedule, but I would support that.
Mr. Leonard, was that a form of a motion then?
I don't know how the other members of the board feel.
Well-
Okay, just continue to do what we've been doing.
I don't see that anybody's burdened by keeping it here until it becomes apparent that something's better. I think everybody's saying that different ways.
Yes, sir, that was the motion.
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to continue with our current,
I don't even know if we got to vote on it. I mean.
And our current
I mean,
location.
yeah, it's just informational. I mean,
Okay.
we decide to keep our meetings here. Why would we have to vote on it?
want to make sure that everybody's in agreement then that we maintain the current schedule, which by the way is in the back of the annual board meeting, both the schedule of meetings and the time of the meetings, which was alluded to earlier. They do alternate between an early morning meeting and an afternoon meeting. And also included in our packet is a list of holidays that the staff primarily will be following as well. And that other than that, we will continue our current time schedule as posted there and our current location.
Correct.
If that is in agreement with the board members and the staff. Okay, all right.
Because we'd have to pay Megan for mileage if she had driveway out on Ninth Avenue. It wouldn't be tough.
The next item on the agenda is the annual report. Lindsay?
Yes, so I will give the credit where credit's due. Rick and Deborah have worked countless hours, working with Tammy, working with Michael to put together a unique report. It is over 200 pages. There's no way for us to have, we're having some printed out, so you will have a formal copy, but we could not email it to you all. So we have sent you the link. It's on our website and it's live. We are required to send that, of course, to our governing body. We did that on the 23rd of December, so they all have it in their inboxes. I've also taken the liberty of sending that out to the rest of our elected officials throughout Escambia County, including our state legislators, our school board members, and then, of course, Friends of ECT. Michael's going to be, and our providers. Michael's going to be putting that out in our newsletter as well. So that link is there. Please, I know it's a lot of information, but our team has worked very hard, painstakingly hard, to try to answer in that report all the questions that continue to come our way. And are we making a difference? And I think when you look at that, you're going to be able to see that information very clearly.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Cannon? I will follow up with a question and inquiry to Ms. Cannon and to Tammy both in regards to an introduction on the annual staff meeting of our new staff member.
That was the mute button, sorry. So we would like to introduce you to Daniel Joyner. He has joined our team as our contract and finance analyst. Remember, we have since been able to, we were hoping to find someone with this unique skill set, and we actually did. So we're very excited. He's been here for a whole, not even a week. I mean, I think tomorrow will be a week, so. So he's jumped right in and is a great fit for our team, and I think you'll find him a great resource to you as well. So we're glad to have him here.
Thank you and welcome. And I know Tammy will be very glad to have you added to the team and to be helping her. So you are joining a good group of folks doing good work. So thank you. The next item listed on there is the resolution 2026-01 that had to do with some potential changes for signatories for operations, and with the same slate of officers that will be not necessary, so we can take that unless anyone has any questions about it. And with that, we'll adjourn our meeting of the annual meeting agenda at this time. And so adjourn. I can even, there. Okay. Now, we are a couple of minutes late in that we were slated to begin this usual January meeting of the Board of Directors for the Escambia Children's Trust. I will be calling that to order at 5:44. And we will again follow with the roll call by Ms. Alma.
I have Ms. Kane as excused. Mr. Leonard? Commissioner May? Dr. Northup?
Here.
Ms. White? David Williams?
Here.
Judge Williams? And Ms. Woods? Thank you.
And having just performed the Pledge of Allegiance, we will not put Mr. Williams and the rest of us and the audience through that, but not skipping that, just noting that that has been performed in the previous meeting. The next item for approval is approval of the agenda. I have a motion to do so.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. The next is approval of the minutes from the meeting on December 9th. And that was one of the morning meetings, and those minutes were included in our packet as well as sent out prior. And are there any additions, corrections, deletions, changes in the minutes to any extent by anyone? If not, then hearing none, the minutes will stand as submitted. And the next item then is the treasurer's report from Ms. Abrams.
Thank you. So I have to tell you, I gave Daniel our financial report and asked him to look it over and give me his feedback, and he says, that's not a report, that's a book. So if you guys are getting more information than you want, please let me know so we can take some of it out. And if you're not getting everything you want, let me know that too. So you guys can all read, so I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to cover a little bit. We have roughly $21,440,000 in cash in the bank and $2,420,000 in our reserve account. We have a total liabilities of $2.8 million, with the largest being for the Pensacola CRA in the amount of $1.8 million roughly. Currently, under the budget line, our administrative expenses are about 10%, with tax collector at 5.15 and program at 84.8. We have budgeted $12 million in revenue and have received 580 of it. Most of our tax revenue will come in December and January. Then other revenue that we have budgeted for is $1 million in interest, which might be overly budgeted. We'll look at that when we do a budget amendment, see if we need to lower that. So currently, we receive 5% of our budgeted revenue. If we look at our expenses, we have currently spent 17% of our administrative budget, and on our program budget, we have spent 9% of our program budget, and roughly 8% of the budget to go out to community providers. So we did have one unusual and unexpected transaction on our general ledger, which was a rebate payment from United Health in the amount of $429. That was because the medical loss ratio wasn't met of 80%. So if they don't spend at least 80% of our premiums on health-related expenses, we get a rebate back. So we got $429, and that had to be paid back to employees, so it was given back to them on a payroll in their percentage that equaled their ratio of their payments. On our contract schedule, that shows all the contracts, and as of 11/30/25, there's a balance of $10,028,000 left on awarded contracts and $14.9 million left in funding requested, and that is all obligated out of our current cash on hand. To date, programs have surrendered a total of $6.4 million that was awarded and not spent. So at the end of the month, out of our cash on hand, we have a total of $2.384 million that is unobligated. The rest of the funding in the bank is obligated for the current contracts and the requests for contracts that we have. Do you guys have any questions on anything I could cover for you?
I have one question based on, and I know we are early in our year, and I'm not trying to get us into any potential uncertainties or whatever, but with the programs having surrendered $6.4 million and things, do you anticipate us potentially having the opportunity to look at some more CARES grants or that type of thing later this fiscal year, or is it too early to make any comment? I'm not trying to hold you to anything.
So right now, when we do our looking out at things, we have 3.5 million roughly budgeted for out-of-school time and 3.5 million roughly for early 0 to 5. So it would have to see what else is surrendered going forward. Because that 6.9 that has been surrendered has been used in prior years. It's not just this year, it's for the whole time we've been operating.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts for, okay, Tammy? Okay, thank you. Financial report then, the Finance and Operations Committee recommends filing of the report as presented. I have a motion for that. Don't need it? Okay, Ms. Allen, thank you. Okay, the next item, public comments. I have again received no notice of any such comments. Now we're under business, and under business we have confirmation and appointment of committee members. Again, in follow-up with our annual meeting, a vital part, as I think every member of the board recognizes, is the work done in between these meetings by our committees. And you have on the back of your packet a list of the committees of the board as they currently exist. The Executive Committee of Tory Woods is the chair, Mr. Williams is the vice chair, and we did have Mr. Peden as the treasurer.
Let me apologize. I did pull last year's and printed it, so I apologize. We'll make that update.
All righty. Well, that will be changed then to myself as chair and Ms. White as vice chair and Ms. Woods as treasurer. And that will remain as we have just voted to retain those positions by those individuals. So that will be unchanged. Finance and operations, we have Ms. Woods as chair of that committee, Mr. Williams, myself, Stephanie, Ms. White, and we have the big yellow block there is for a volunteer would like to have an additional person other than those previously named willing to serve on that committee if anyone is willing to do so. And or can we appoint Ms. Kane since she's not here?
And it is in our bylaws that we have 5 members of that committee. So
Okay,
if we could get another one, it'd be fabulous.
so in order to be in compliance with our own bylaws, we need a 5th member on there. So do I have anyone among the board here now willing to do that? And if not, we can get in touch with Ms. Kane and see if she would be willing to take that on. And the others then are willing to remain in those positions. Okay. The program committee, Mr. Williams chairs that. Mr. May, Commissioner May is on there, myself, Ms. White, and Ms. Woods. That fills that committee. Is there a desired need, request for change or anything among those members? If not, that committee will stand as recorded there. The next is the Policy and Bylaws Committee. Ms. Kane does chair that one. Ms. Woods is on that. Ms. White and Judge Williams is listed on there. Would like to request, we're not required to have another member by our policy and bylaws, but in reality and recognizing responsibilities of the good judge, where it is at times difficult for him to attend those meetings, do we have anyone who would volunteer to be on that committee as well so that we could meet quorum and all for those meetings?
I would just like to add, that one does not meet that often. If that helps anyone. It's typically just, once or twice a year related to policy updates.
Keep that, and if needed, I will make myself available, particularly in light of its infrequent meeting and things, to do that. And the Personnel Committee, again, is, our bylaws require 5 members of that, which we currently have. Commissioner May is the chair, Ms. White, Mr. Leonard, Ms. Woods, and myself. And again, is there a request or a need for any change in that committee? Lumen? Okay. Have a thumbs up from everyone in that one, so that committee will stay the same as well. Okay. The next item of business then is the legal report with Ms. Fry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy New Year, everyone. 2 items on the legal report, first being the proposed interlocal agreement to resolve the CRA tax issue with the City of Pensacola. The city attorney, Mr. Cobb, forwarded a draft interlocal agreement to myself and Ms. Neese today that we are reviewing the numbers within that agreement with Ms. Abrams and Ms. Cannon to confirm that the calculation of the proposed interlocal payments is in agreement with the discussions we've had with the city. Just so the board is aware, all penalties and interest have been removed, and the city is committed that those will not be due under any proposed interlocal agreement. Additionally, there will be a partial set-off to any amounts paid under a proposed interlocal agreement for the current grant obligation to Parks and Rec. So the city has been receptive to both of those requests, and that is in the current draft. So we will review those, like I said, with Ms. Abrams and Ms. Cannon to make sure.
Megan, do we
numbers-
have the draft here in our packet?
I don't have the draft. I didn't send it to you today. Like I
okay,
said, it
for
came in
the-
this morning. I'm happy to forward it
Okay,
to the board
great.
following conclusion of the meeting. Ms. Cannon may be able to share additional items, but from our office, that's kind of where we stand. I will say, Commissioner May, that the draft is essentially identical in terms, material terms, to the one negotiated with the county. So it's really going to be a matter of filling in what programmatically the city is committing to do with the funds, and also the term, proposed length of the interlocal, as well as the proposed
So,
interlocal payments.
Lindsay, are they going to do the daycare? I mean, kind of with the meetings of daycare, or would it be a part of the after-school that we're already funding? I mean, what programs are they proposing?
No, they're looking at childcare specifically.
So they're on that track as
Yeah,
we-
they have buildings, I mean, and which, is a major problem with childcare, and so, but we have the operational type of funds that would be within our scope. So I think they're looking at that more in a partnership of what they can bring to the table, and then what we can do to help fill in those gaps. So they were looking at upwards of about 4 centers throughout the city. but
Have they
haven't
identified those
identified all
centers
of it.
within the memorandum buttons?
I'm sorry, say what?
Have they identified it in their proposal where those centers will be located?
No, we have not gotten that yet, so we don't know that. That's part of one of the things they've been working in internally. We had discussed at our last meeting by the 15th, having some sort of programmatic proposal for us to look at. So hoping we'll still be able to meet that deadline so that we can go through that and get it to you. Our hope is to have this resolved by February. Let's move forward, especially if it's childcare related. Like, let's.
So is it filling a gap, kind of like we did with Head Start, with what Early Learning Coalition is not funding, or is it like new programming that will be completely funded by Children Trust?
I couldn't answer that. I haven't been privy to that information yet. They just said that they wanted to expand and have access to more childcare. So like I said, I'm waiting on that. I haven't gotten it yet.
I'd be curious to know how they expand healthcare if they, childcare.
Well, absolutely.
If they're not doing it, I don't know how you expand anything that you're not doing, but
But being able to have more centers that are in city buildings, like that doesn't exist right now related to early childhood in that way, I don't believe.
Yeah, I'm just not familiar with
I have-
any deliverables that they're doing, and that's fine, but if they say expand where?
Not Parks and Rec, this would be something completely different.
So they would expand childcare is what they're saying?
Yeah, like 0 to 5, sorry, to be clear, like 0 to 5 daycare,
So these will be new programs or existing
Yes.
programs that they expand?
new programs.
New program, okay.
At least that's what they've told me at this point. Now, they've been meeting and working pretty hard on it. So once I get the proposal, I'll be able to probably answer some of those questions. Teresa's here. I'm sure she's like taking notes on those kind of questions as well, so.
Oh, Teresa's the best. Yeah, we've talked multiple times. I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
I have a question.
Yes.
How is that, I know we had talked before, so are they giving up the other funds that we already gave them? Is that what they're, like, we already have a current contract that we give funds, so where do we stand with that?
The conversation was going to be a set off of that, I believe.
Yeah, like they
Megan,
wouldn't
maybe.
surrender or give up those current funds, and the current grant wouldn't be terminated. It's really, if they claim that the total obligation is, and I'm just pulling these numbers out, 3 million, and you've already given them a grant of 1.7, and they've spent 700, then we're going to try and our best to set off the amount of proposed interlocal payments by what they're already receiving in a direct grant. Different than the county, because the county wasn't receiving a direct grant from ECT. And so there is recognition by the city that that's a fair analysis and a fair thing to do.
So are you saying,
They're going to continue that Parks and Rec program separate and apart from whatever new thing they're going to create to be funded by the interlocal. And I say new thing,
so
because
if
it's
we,
still in
if we
development.
write in our new bylaws that you can't have both, then how does that work? Because I know we had talked about in the new contract that you can't have the interlocal and the current contract, so how is that gonna work?
I don't think that's in the bylaw, yeah.
I mean, policy and procedure, I mean,
manual,
yeah.
okay.
Like if we, that was something we had discussed, so how would that work if we do that?
I'd have to look at that. I don't have the policy in front of me to be able to answer that. From my legal perspective, it's just a different analysis because it's resolving an outstanding taxation issue, which is separate and apart from making a grant to any organization.
And then when you say, I know you were just throwing out numbers, are you saying, so if we funded, and I'm just throwing out a number too.
Right.
So say if the current grant was a $2 million grant, are we basing the payment off of what they've used or base the payment off what they've been awarded?
The former, so it'll be what they've actually used and have been reimbursed.
And so for this current year, if we're in that contract, will we not pay them until after we see what they've used?
That's what I just sent to Ms.
Okay.
Abrams and Ms. Cannon. So I don't know that I can answer off the fly, because obviously the years are running calendar versus program year. But to answer your question, that's the kind of analysis we're going to undertake to make sure that we're drafting in a way that's, I don't want to say to the trust benefit, because it's everybody's benefit, it's just what's fair. But to make sure that those years align, if that makes sense.
So,
But the discussion was, whatever they're going to draw down in this current
Right.
contract would be recognized and reduced from the TIF payment. So they were going to recognize it. They just haven't expended it yet.
Right.
But they've looked at their spend rate and they're on track to spend down.
okay, and the reason I'm asking is because in the previous years, we funded CARES grant with the money that they didn't spend. So if we've spent that money, so say, like last year, we did the CARES grant based off of the money that organizations didn't use.
Surrendered, right?
So where would we be getting that money from if we use it for CARES grants?
So I think that's already obligated. Right.
I think Tammy's already put that on the liability. So we've set those dollars aside from
Right.
when their original request is. So CARES grants would definitely, if we can do those, which we would love to do those again, would come out of whatever we're recapturing. So whatever they're not spending would go back into the pot, just like the other ones did. And we can reallocate those out in a new RFP or a CARES process or, whatever we would like to do as a board. And I think at our program committee that we're going to have later this month or beginning of February, those are some things we really got to decide. We're in a a weird situation related to property taxes being eliminated or reduced or whatever, we are going to have to make some really strategic decisions with a potential large cut, if not all of it gone. Like, we've got to really work through that. So I think those are really great questions, and we do need to meet through what we want to do with the dollars that we have this year, and how we want to obligate those going forward.
So what Tim is saying is the full amount is already set aside.
Yes.
So if what we're saying, okay, so that money's set aside. 'cause-
Yeah, that's set aside. So what we have is what we have. Like, we've already, as soon as we get that request, Tammy kind of, essentially, she doesn't shift revenue, but she says, we aren't spending this till we know this is resolved, which
Okay.
is the same thing we did with the county.
Okay.
Lindsay?
Yes.
And so Teresa's here, and I know Tanya Bird is just taking over the Parks and Rec. And there are many, I mean, quite frankly, we fund organizations here that do the same thing that not-for-profits do with volunteers, and particularly in youth sports. And whether it's NEP, Bill Bond Baseball, soccer, whether it's McGee Field, whether it's Legion Field where I am, we're taxed with $10 a kid for kids to go out on a football field or a baseball field, which is tens of thousands of kids. And I would just love to have that conversation with, how do we fund that? I mean, we're funding after-school programs that don't nearly have the numbers, and yes, daycare nearly have the numbers of tens of thousands of children who are participating, whether it's obesity, diabetes, tutoring, and these not-for-profits who are not funded by the Children's Trust are doing more work, candidly, than people who are being funded and paid salaries. So I'd love to have that conversation, particularly of how we have that relationship with the city as we tie this funding, as we fund those after-school programs, how we are not taxing children, to be able to play on a football field when we're funding other programs that doesn't have the numbers that we have that's going out each day playing soccer and baseball and football and basketball. So a part of the negotiation, I hope that conversation will be had with the city before we come back for a final resolution.
You may need to explain to me how that works, because
I'll be happy to explain. The bottom line is
So you'll have to
when a
tell
kid plays football or baseball at Bill Bond, there's a $10 tax on his head, and that we pay that, but we're still funding after-school programs, whether it be at
So like
Cobb.
coming out of the parent, like the parents paying $100?
Oh, it comes out of the organization. And so it's a children's trust. And so if we're going to give children opportunities to go to after-school programs and daycare programs where we're funding millions, I don't think that that's something that organizations should have to absorb. Particularly, many of these organizations are competing with organizations that are getting almost $1 million from the Children's Trust, but you have people who are selling hot dogs, corn dogs, trying to pick up $5,000, $6,000 to pay for children to participate in recreational activities that are structured. So I just hope that that's a part of the conversation of how the trust, and I'd be willing to bring that motion, how the trust can supplement that, because when it's a children's trust, when we say all children, that is something of consideration, and we may say, well, it's only $10, but when you're McGee Field and the Rattlers, and you're having to come up with $3,000 or $4,000 in inner city baseball, where you can get no kids to play, you can't afford the uniforms, and you got to come up with an extra $2,000 or $3,000. I think that's an unfair burden, and if we have the means and the revenue to help do that, I think that we should have that conversation with the city. And so I think Tanya's open. I'm actually going to talk to the mayor about it, but a part of this negotiation, I think that when we're talking about opportunity for all children and not just certain children, we should make sure that we're very inclusive. And I would be very interested to know how we can work that out.
Okay, well, this is the first I've heard of that sort of thing,
Well,
so
I'm sure
open to
Tori
whatever
knows, or
discussion.
anybody that's been involved in Little League sports understand that. I understand it very clearly. And I understand to the tune of millions of dollars that we're allocating. And when you talk about the masses of numbers, the children who are staying off the street from 5 to 8 every day, it's the kids and the coaches who are coaching soccer, baseball, basketball in the community. And we have an opportunity to work with the city and to eliminate that undue burden that's being placed on these organizations. I'm a part of one, so I understand it. Thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions on the status of the interlocal? Okay, if not, the second item is the New World Believers issue, and I'll let Lindsay address that first and then add some comment as needed.
Yes, so on the 5th of January, we received notification that there was a change in leadership at New World Believers, which was a material change, so it's an executive director. We haven't really had a turnover in that regard with our organization yet. So inquired and scheduled a meeting with their team, their new CEO, their program director, and their board chair for Monday of this week. In that time between there, we also received notification that Department of Juvenile Justice was conducting an investigation related to the NWB Hoops program, which you know is the program that we fund. And that Mr. Jones, Rodney Jones, who has been their executive director, was no longer on staff and could not participate at their organization. At that time, we staffed this with legal. When we have a formal organization coming in, and I will just tell you from a child welfare, from my experience, when you have an organization coming in like that and doing an investigation, we were not given any other information related to the safety of those children that are there. We were not given any notice specifically by DJJ directly letting us know that our children were safe. So I did staff with legal to put a pause on their contract for a minute to find out what's going on. They weren't able to share with us on Monday when we met what's happening. They have some sort of follow-up meeting going forward. In the meantime, I've also requested a variety of different documents from them related to background screenings, related to the change in their leadership. Their contracts need to be updated. Their board needs to be updated. We weren't sure, their SunBiz, that, you know, is their legal registration, was not matching their board structure. There were some administrative things that I guess had been in Rodney Jones's wheelhouse that he was managing that was now being pushed to the new staff. So we were able to discuss those issues and send them a letter requesting all of these things to follow up. So we are at this time, they've said that they are going to be having a follow-up call with DJJ this week. So we are waiting for that. But at this point, when we look at this from a legal perspective, our first job here is to protect children. And if I can't 100% say to you all that these kids are safe and there's no safety risk to them, then I think we did the right thing by just taking a pause. We haven't canceled their contract. We are going to pay them up until the day of their suspension. We already had that in process anyway, but wanted to let you know that is where we are at with them at this time.
Thank you for that update. Ms. Cannon, questions or comments?
So, Lindsay, is there any tangible evidence that suggests that the contract should be pulled?
For suspension or
Or for suspension pulled or whatever?
I will tell you there is a breach of contract related to background screenings that we've discovered through this process.
So you feel that there's substantial evidence that warrants their contract being suspended at this time?
I think that the initial thing was, are our kids safe? And at the second time, yes, we do need to hold to get those, to get all of that information updated, yes.
So we have evidence that gives us at least some indication that children's safety is at risk.
Yeah, I think the initial notice that DJJ is involved, that was, of course, the initial reaction, is this a child welfare safety issue? And then secondly, upon digging in, the failure to have the proper background screenings is a breach of the agreement. And it is according to the current agreement, the board's sole and absolute discretion to suspend payment under the grant in the event of a breach or noncompliance.
So the breach, Megan, and just for point of clarification, not that I'm in any way antagonistic, the breach is lack of compliance with background checks, or is the breach child welfare?
Yeah, we've got a few things, right? So, and I think that selecting to suspend rather than terminate at the time the notice was given was the right choice, because of course it's an investigation, it's not an indictment or an arrest or something, right? So your first and foremost is fails to comply with the background screening, that's an event of breach. Fail to provide the services outlined in the scope of work to the satisfaction of ECT. I think that that's what Ms. Cannon's undertaken to review now. Fails to correct an imminent safety concern or take corrective action, also as determined in the sole discretion of the board. fail to maintain or furnish certificates of insurance as required. That was an issue flagged by Ms. Cannon. Failure to meet and satisfy any condition of the award, which is about as broad as it could be. And then the child safety or welfare issue would be a failure to comply with child abuse and incident reporting requirements. I think it's fair to say we don't yet know if that occurred or did not occur. But the background screening has become the immediate issue, which of course is a potential safety issue.
So in just layman terms, Megan, the reason for the suspension, lay it out, ABC would be what?
I'm going to
Lack of
lack of the proper background screening. I mean, it appears as subpart A, the first thing that you see under termination, or breach of contract and remedies, I shouldn't say termination. Fails to comply with background screening as required by the contract or applicable law.
So the remedy is if they provided background screening, then they would be reinstated?
No.
I think what you're asking, correct me if I'm wrong, is the reason that we suspended them initially. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I'm asking,
The reason that we
I'm asking for the,
suspended
I'm sorry,
initially-
Stephanie. I just want to know 1, 2, 3, just because publicly I have to answer
Right,
those
the
questions.
suspension-
What are the reasons why they're suspended? I'm not
the
questioning,
noti-
I just want the facts
the
of why
notice-
they're being suspended.
Yeah, the notice of the DJJ investigation was the immediate cause for the suspension, because your contracts state that child welfare and safety is of first and foremost of concern to the board in its sole and absolute discretion. So that's how you define it.
So the suspension is based on DJJ and lack of,
And notice of change in operational control, a material change in operational control.
and I'm fine with making, just
Yeah.
in as much as there's not a precedent that there was any other material control of any other organization that we've been consistent. And so I just want to be just clear with that.
That's fair, and also, I mean, they did provide notice to you, which is what they're supposed to do under the agreement, so, I can't speak for how staff monitors that, but under the terms of the agreement, they were required to provide notice. Ms. Jones provided the notice, and then immediately stated, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones is part of a DJJ investigation. So we did at that time consult the agreement and recommend suspension. The subsequent things about the background screening came after notice from the Jones.
So was she in compliance when she submitted that there was a change in leadership? I mean,
Compliance under the agreement, I can't say for sure, right? I can say that she complied with that portion of the agreement that requires her to notify the organization of the change. I don't think any one of us can sit here and speak as to what else may be in compliance or non-compliance pending investigation, which is why, once again, requested suspension rather than termination. I think that was a measured approach, pending completion of investigation and responses from the organization back to this board to the sole and absolute discretion and satisfaction of this board.
right, yeah, and just for me, Megan, simply, there's enough people that's watching this that have asked me questions today as a board member. I just want to be very clear and concise,
it's fair.
the reason of this suspension, and so I just want that 1, 2,
Absolutely.
3, if someone feels like, we complied with
Sure.
what was requested, we
Cannon
we
stated,
did
it's
change the
fine.
scope. So, it's fair, but
Yeah.
just tell me, because I want to be consistent with what Stephanie's saying, what this board's saying,
Yeah.
is this is the reason for the suspension, because
Sure.
this is a pretty visible organization with leadership that's active in community, and so I want to make sure that we're able to say this is why it's been suspended.
Well, and I would just like to add, the change in leadership wasn't the precursor to the suspension. The change in leadership was the precursor to, okay, you've had a material change, we need to get you guys in here, because Rodney is the only person that we've ever dealt with at that organization, related to finances, related to policies, related to HR, all of that. So our first thing was, how quick can we get you in here to have a discussion about your plans moving forward, which there have been changes to their staffing structure that they're looking at as well. So in compliance with the grant that they proposed, there are going to be some changes, it sounds like, not necessarily in how they work with the kids, but how they supervise some of this. Rodney was a licensed mental health counselor. I don't know if they have one of those on staff or there's a plan for that. We need to have some of that information. And so those were some of the concerns that we had and wanted to get them in to have those discussions and even offer support on how to make that happen, because it seemed to be a very quick decision. And then, a day and a half, 2 days later, we hear that there's an active investigation. And, I've worked in child welfare for 25 years, and I'm going to tell you, if there's an investigation going on at a foster home, they remove the kids from that situation. If there's something going on in a daycare, they remove the kids from that situation.
Right,
I don't have
and
the-
listen, I just
I
wanna
don't
be
have
clear
the
what it
ability to
is.
go remove kids, but I do, and I can't stop them from serving them, which they've said they're not going to stop. But we have to be cautious about what we are funding. And I've just requested, have DJJ reach out to me and let me know. And if they can tell us our kids are safe, then we have other things we need to remedy, but those are things we can probably work through. But right now, we need to know that the kids are safe, that we're funding. That is my strong recommendation to you all. You can reinstate them if you want.
No,
but
I'm not.
I'm not
I'm not recommending. Let's
Okay.
not. Let's not mix and mince my words. Clearly, I'm just actually clearly why. I mean, and that's
sure.
fair to say why, and so to suggest that anyone has said to reinstate them, I have not, and I'm the only one that's spoken, so I have not. I mean, for the record, I've said that the informal mental health was a joke, and so, and the point of him being a licensed mental health counselor, when that's not a requirement, is not even part of the conversation, because I agree we should have it, but most people who's doing this informal mental health care, they don't have licensed psychiatrists, psychologists, MSWs, and I've said that in the beginning, that we should have, but we don't. So eliminating him as a mental health counselor from the organization
But I think
is not a justification.
the difference is that was in their contract. So that was part of,
Well, that's
part of
part of the
their
reason why they're
proposal.
eliminated then.
Yeah, no, I'm
If you
saying-
violated, to me,
Yeah.
it's black and white. It's not as a narrative. It's black. You violated the contract. You didn't have background checks. It's 1, 2, 3, and it's concise. It's clear, and that's why it's being suspended.
yeah.
And so that's what it is. And so that's a clear message.
I mean, I
That's
think
fair.
what Lindsay was saying was, as far as like him being a part of it and him being the mental health counselor, the only reason that was important was because their specific contract had that written in there. So if he's the only mental health counselor on contract, and that's what we were paying for, and that's a large portion of the contract, removing him and not having a mental health counselor would void what the initial ask was for the contract. So that's a change of scope.
And I heard you tell, but me and you are on the same page.
Oh, yeah,
'cause
yeah,
you're
yeah.
not
I'm-
there.
yeah, I'm just
But
explaining for people
having
that
a
are watching.
licensed mental health counselor has never been a part of the informal mental health. Is why I argued why I did not support this informal mental health. And so I get it may be a part of the contract, but it was not a part of the requirement.
Yeah, it was a part of, yeah, I agree. But it was just part of his,
Yeah, it might be his narrative or his proposal,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a part of the contract because we didn't require that of everybody else. And I agree we should, but we didn't.
yeah, but for his, if we approved his because of that component, so taking that away would mean that that his proposal that was approved by the grants committee is a change of scope. So that would mean that his change of scope, there would be a change of scope for what he was requiring that they're able to do with those kids. So that's why that was a huge, a huge part of his specific contract compared to other contracts.
I think as
I agree with you, Tory, but here's fun, and I'm not in any way advocating at all, just have a
Yeah.
conversation. We've changed scopes without suspensions of contracts, and so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
I mean, we've changed scopes multiple times without suspending contracts.
And I always say no.
Yeah, I mean, but the precedent is that we have. It is what it is. No matter what our personal feelings are, it is what it is.
I think as I looked at it and have been informed about this as well, is that a tremendous amount of the scope of the contract, the true gist of the contract was related to Rodney, his credentialing, his involvement with this entire organization, and that it not only was an investigation of him, but he was under a directive related to this investigation that he could now, in the foreseeable future, until the investigation is further along, have zero involvement. So his ability to participate in ongoing activity or to serve as a reference for them, in theory, as I understand it, is null at this time. It is kind of the proverbial cone of silence that the organization is unable to communicate with the individual who has been the largest component of that organization and its structure and its functioning. And so if he is more or less taken out of the picture, then really the functioning of that organization, as well as these issues of child safety certainly rising to the top of the whole thing. I think all of that means that we've got a situation right now, we don't know kind of the making light of this without meaning to who's on first and what's on second, who is performing what task, what are their qualifications to do that, what services are being provided by whom, et cetera. And until we get further clarification on all that, I, for one, think it's quite appropriate that the contract be not necessarily ended at this point, but be suspended until we, as this board, get further clarity of just what is going on.
Mr. Chair, I just want to be clear that I've not said that it shouldn't be suspended. I've just asked clearly for clarification on why it's being suspended. So I don't want any insinuation that someone has said for it not to be suspended. We've clearly said, why is it being suspended, so we can convey that message to people who are concerned.
Sure.
And I agree with you. I was just clarifying that one component in case, like you said, people watching, they understand why his was a little different than the people that don't have mental health counselors on there. I agree.
Because quite frankly, we brought up an individual name, which I refuse to bring up, but it's more than an individual that is being adversely, directly, or inadvertently affected by whatever decision that we make. And so those people who are dependent on those services, who may, it doesn't matter whether they were looking to get a lunch or whether they're getting ready to pick up, we should communicate to them. It's our responsibility that we're funding to those citizens that we represent. This is why you are not going to where you're going, because we made this decision, not based on anything that you've done, based on some procedural things or material things that has nothing to do with the participants who are engaging in those services.
And I would say that the commitment from the Hoops team that's in place right now is that they said they were going to continue to serve the kids that were in their care at this point.
Oh, that'd be great. Then we never have to fund them again. I mean, yeah, that's good. That's a good precedent. I think it's a lot of them could do that.
They did ask if they could get paid, and I told them we would need to just go through the process as we are right
Serve them without our money, great.
and that we could staff it as a board again. So they were very cooperative, though, and I know this is a very challenging time. You know, that's a family organization, and so we'll be as cooperative as we can with whatever the future holds with this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Lindsay, thank you for doing a great job. I think that we are stewards, and we should hold people to the highest level of accountability when you're with taxpayer dollars, and you're absolutely right. There are going to be some challenging days in terms of DOGE and tax reform and things that we go, so we do have to be good stewards of the dollars. But at the same time, we have to be fair to the citizens and just be clear. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not gray. It's black or white. Either you're wrong or you're right. If you're wrong, you're just wrong. And if you're right, you're right.
Any other further question or comment on that issue? If not, that'll conclude the legal report.
Thank you, Ms. Fry. Any further items to be discussed or brought to the board? If not, we will be adjourned.
Wait, one thing, Dr. Northup. I just wanted to give, you all have your packet of articles. Mary is here. I don't know if she's left or not.
she is.
She's done a lot of work over the last 6 months going out to our sites and visiting with the children there and with the staff there. She's done a wonderful job, so I just wanted to publicly thank her for being someone that's invested time and really seeing what's happening out in the field. So thank you, Mary.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the staff pulling this together. I was able to get a few of the articles, but couldn't get my hands on all of them. They have all been provided now, and thank you.
Okay. All right. Now I'm done.
Okay, now, we will stand adjourned at 6:28, 2 minutes under.